I was a member of the Marching 100 at Florida A&M University when the worst thing imaginable happened. Someone died. Robert Champion, to be exact. And no matter what news articles you may have read or news stories you've heard, I wanted to walk everyone through what happened from my point of view, as someone who was actually there. For some background info, the buses were labeled with letters, Bus A, B, C, etc. Bus C being mainly the percussion bus, with a few others that so happened to be put on that bus. It was tradition that every Florida Classic after the game you would cross Bus C, if you wanted to be a part of the Bus C crew and get to participate in their various shenanigans. Basically, you would get beaten by drumsticks and fists from the back of the bus to the front of the bus. Stupid, I know, and I've never agreed with it, but if you're in any kind of frat or organization in college, whether you want to admit it or not, there is always some form of hazing going on. It might not be physical, but it's there. Now on to the story. It was the Florida Classic in Orlando on a Saturday, and nothing about that day seemed right. From the time it was time for us to get up and get ready for the game, to actually being at the game, the day just seemed really dark and omniscient. It was gloomy, hot, and raining. I know that doesn't make sense, but if you ever lived in Florida, you'd understand. The sun never came out that day, and the entire band just couldn't seem to get anything right. People were messing up the music, and just overall everyone seemed to be in a really bad mood. But come to think of it, it was probably because most of them were hungover. The game continued on and our football team lost, as expected. Afterwards, we played a few songs and went back to the hotel at around 8. I was in my room watching TV, when at around 9, one of my percussion friends called to ask me where I was and what I was doing. I told him nothing, but he just kind of dismissed me and started talking to someone in the background. Then got back on the phone sounding really excited and said, "They're about to start the prep for Bus C." I immediately rolled my eyes. I had this feeling in the pit of my stomach, so I told him to leave and not to participate in this one, because I felt like something bad was going to happen. He thought for a minute, and told me that he was about to go get some food and he'd text me when he got back to his room. Now, for those of you wondering why we called each other instead of just meeting up, there were about 450 of us in the band at the time, and we always stayed in hotels that were large enough to accommodate all of us. In short, I was too lazy to try to find anyone that wasn't easily accessible. I still couldn't shake that bad feeling I had, so I started texting all of my friends to make sure they were okay. That's when it started. At 10:45, Keith, my percussion friend, texted me the following. "Something's wrong. Robert stopped breathing." I replied, "What? Where are you? What happened? I thought you weren't going to be with them. I told you to leave." "I did, but I just came back to watch. Everything was all right, and then all of a sudden he started coughing and throwing up." "Oh my God. Well, did you call for help?" No response. "Keith! Hello?" He stopped texting me, and I was honestly having a mini heart attack. I finally got a response close to midnight. He told me that everything was okay, and that he took Robert to the hospital. I felt a little bit better, but I still had a funny feeling, and I knew a lot of people were going to be in trouble the next day, so I went to bed. Sunday we got a really early wake-up call, and were told to meet band staff in the hotel ballroom. I mentally prepared myself for the scolding that we were about to get, when I noticed that it was completely silent. Not a single sound was being made. It seemed like someone pressed pause on life, and I was the only one still in motion. When I finally got to the ballroom, everyone was sitting down, and some people were crying. I found a spot to sit, and after what seemed like 10 minutes, Dr. White, who was our band director at the time, finally said something. "Band, I regret to inform you that Robert didn't make it. I couldn't think. As insensitive as this is about to sound, the only thing I could think was, I knew it. That's exactly why I had that weird feeling yesterday. And despite Keith telling me that Robert was okay, I knew deep down in my heart that he was dead. I felt it in my spirit. After Dr. White said that one statement, he walked away, and one of the other members of the band staff told us to get our stuff and head to the bus. We were leaving. The only thing I could do was look at Keith and shake my head. The look on his face said it all, but I couldn't bring myself to say anything to him. The entire ride back to Tallahassee was silent. No one wanted to talk. All you could hear was just the sound of the bus traveling down the highway. We got back to town. I turned in my uniform and went home. Nothing was really on my mind. It was just blank. Keith called me with a somber voice and told me that Robert was getting beat extra hard, but that he didn't think he couldn't handle it, so he never said anything. He also swore up and down that he never touched Robert, that he was only there to support him because he himself was a part of the Bus C crew. I just sat on the phone, not really knowing what to say. Was I supposed to sympathize with him because he watched someone die? I didn't know. So I did what I do best and continued to listen. The days after that started to run together, and different people in the band were investigated. I just continued on with my classes, because I was sick of people asking me what happened. I hate to make a long story so short, but Keith ended up moving to a different state shortly after everything went down. I want to say that I believe him about not putting his hands on Robert because he's my friend. But I don't know. I wasn't there. I've always found it strange that he decided to move just as the investigation started to get heavy. Nonetheless, it was a very traumatizing experience. And although it's 2017, I still remember the details of that very weekend like it was yesterday. So this is going to be something a little different, but we're going to take a couple minute break from the scary videos, and I'm going to do a quick review of a beanbag chair that I was sent from SumoLounge.com. The Sumo Sultan. And no, this is not a paid review or paid advertisement. They simply reached out to me and asked if I'd be willing to do a review on one of their products. And I actually think it fit pretty well here since it's kind of chilling and relaxing. So make sure you check out the screen if you want to see the product as well as me, because I know some of you people haven't seen me. If you even care. So the first thing about this beanbag chair is it actually came in a box that was pretty small. You have to break it all up and actually let it sit for like 4 days so it fully expands. So it does take a little bit of time to set up, but it's actually pretty easy. It's made from micro suede fabric, and it's actually really soft. The first thing I noticed when I was setting it up, besides it being massive, is that it's actually not like bean bags like the inside like you used to expect, those little small pebbles. It feels almost like it's chunked up memory foam, which is still actually really comfortable. But yeah, I thought that was something else I would bring up, because for some reason I always picture the old little white balls on the inside. I only know that because I kept ripping all of my old beanbag chairs. That being said, I wasn't easy on this thing. I'm not afraid to jump on my chair. And it didn't explode, so that's a good thing. It also has a detachable pocket, as you can see, and it's like a little magnetized clip almost, but a button. Also a cool little thing that I will note, and I would have never realized this, it doesn't cause static electricity for longer hair. That was actually something I would have never guessed, but my wife was using it just after her surgery rather than me trying to prop her up on pillows. And she really enjoyed the fact that her hair wasn't standing on end, so I figured I would point that out. So as I said, this thing is huge. I am 6'3" and this thing actually fits me on there, and I can sleep on there if I want, which I have done. All in all, I'd have to say it's a really good product, And if you're looking for something comfortable to recline on while you do whatever, video games, listen to stories, any of that good stuff, I would recommend this chair. So if you're looking for something comfortable to sit on, and you have a little bit of extra cash, and you also have some room, make sure you go check out their site. I'll have a link in the description, and it's not an affiliated link. Like I said, I'm not paid for this at all, but I do get to keep the product, as far as I know. And if they want it back, well, that sucks, because I'm keeping this thing. I'd like to really quick thank Sumo Lounge for reaching out to me to review their product, and let you know that I really enjoy it. So now that we've done something a little different, let's get back to the stories. This story begins around August or September, just a week into my 8th grade year. So I was 13 years old. My class had walked a short distance to the local public playground. This playground had what you'd expect, including a few slides, swings, and a merry-go-round. But it was surrounded by woods, full of trails where many people like to walk. Ironically, although our activity was named Outdoor Explore by the school, we were only allowed to stay in the playground area, and we were not permitted to explore the surrounding woods. Still, in past school years, my friends and I would frequently walk up a wooded hill right behind the swings. At the top there was a picnic table, and some trails which led deeper into the woods. We would usually hang out up there until we heard the whistle being called, and most of the time we did not get caught by our teachers. On this day, without even discussing it when we arrived at the park, my friend Henry and I decided to walk up the side of this wooded hill. We were happily talking and laughing about how our first week of school this year had went, when we saw the dark silhouette of a man standing by the picnic table. It was daytime, but the trees blocked out some light, and the man had very dark skin and was wearing dark clothes. "There's a guy up there," Henry whispered to me. "Yeah, let's just walk by," I whispered to him. It was not uncommon to see homeless people around this park, so we weren't very freaked out. Henry and I walked the rest of the way to the top of the hill nonchalantly, until we passed the guy, now sitting at the picnic table. He stared at us with freaky large red eyes. He made direct eye contact with me, so I said hi, very mildly. The whole situation felt very creepy at this point, so when we were just a bit past the picnic table, Henry and I decided to run down the back side of the hill. We kept running until we found a rocky cliff about halfway down the hill and crouched below that. After a few seconds we looked above the cliff, expecting to see nobody. But right at the top of the hill, we could just make out his blurry figure, standing there peering around, as if looking for us. "My God, he's still there," I whispered. Henry later told me that he had noticed the guy had a strange limp-like walk as well. Then suddenly, the guy looked right at us. "Go, go, go," I yelled, as Henry and I dashed down the backside of the hill, tripping over roots and rocks as we went. Towards the bottom, I fell over and skidded down on my shorts. "You okay?" Henry asked, helping me up. "Yeah, thanks," I replied. We had emerged onto a mainstream trail, where pedestrians were walking their dogs and doing other normal activities. We caught our breath and briefly discussed the intensity of this situation. We also agreed we couldn't wait to tell our friends about this. When around 5 minutes had passed, we decided to slowly make our way up the hill, checking for the guy everywhere. Fortunately, he was nowhere to be found. We finally got out of the woods and back to the playground, just as the whistle was called. On the walk back to school, we told any classmate who would listen, "We just got chased by a homeless guy." If only I could say the story ended there. In the weeks after that, whenever we would visit the playground, we could see similar looking guys walking around or hanging out at a nearby pavilion. At first we would say, "Hey, maybe that's the guy that chased us." But as the school year went on, the experience slowly faded in our minds. That is, until a day towards the end of the year, in May or early June. Henry and I were playing jousting games with a few of our friends, where we would basically have two people wrestle each other in a very playful manner. We kept having to move locations because our teacher was continuously telling us to knock it off. Now we were at the location at the base of this hill, where the teachers could not see us. Close to where we were now, earlier that day, I had found a small red straw, but thought nothing of it. While my friend Gideon and I were wrestling here, a few kids came down the hill and said, "We think there's somebody up there." Henry and I immediately shared a look of interest, remembering our experience from the beginning of the school year. The kids took us around to the other side of the hill, where we could clearly see a man at the top. This time, we were in a group of about 10 kids, each of us creeping closer. This man looked quite similar to the other we had seen, with dark skin. He also had mildly grimy clothes and was standing in the same area, but was acting quite differently. He kept putting his face down on the table. We were mostly silent, except for a few kids whispering to each other to get closer. This man showed no sign he noticed us and continued to put his face down close to the table. Then, one of the kids at the front whispered, "He has a straw." Right at that moment, the whistle was blown. At about this time, we all figured out what was probably going on. The man up there was snorting some kind of drug on the picnic table. We all ran down together. When walking back to school, I told Henry and Gideon about the straw I had found earlier. The three of us decided we shouldn't tell our teacher about the experience, for a couple of reasons. One being so we could investigate this ourselves, and the other so we wouldn't be in trouble for being at the top of the hill. However, one of the other kids in our group, and who the teacher was previously known to be afraid of, told him what we had seen, and that it looked like the guy was snorting cocaine. The teacher did not get us in trouble, and instead he said he would call the police. However, I did not see any police in the area near the park that day, and I do live quite close. As far as we know, the police never came, and this guy at the top of the hill was never caught. I have been to the park since, and there hasn't been anybody at the top of the hill, or any evidence somebody was involved in suspicious activity there, save for a few coats lying on the ground in different places. I couldn't help but wonder things like, was this the same man that Henry and I had been chased by at the beginning of the year? Was the one who had chased us high at the time? What would he have done if he had caught us? Watch out for odd people you meet. You never know what their intentions might be. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And if you would like to gain early access to all of my content, make sure you go check out my Patreon page. It's a cool way for you guys to help support the channel, as well as get some other cool perks. And if you have a scary story or creepy story that you would like to share, make sure you email it to yourmaker6260@gmail.com. I hope everyone who started school or is getting ready to start school, if you're in school obviously, is ready for this next year. Make sure you stay away from drugs, kids. That's bad juju. I appreciate you all checking this video out, and I'll catch you in the next one. And just remember, it's always scarier if it's true.